Hello and welcome back to Rocket Pod. On today's show, we're joined by the founder of Zippers In, Kate Bell. Zippers In is a fast-growing fashion brand catering to women from maternity, family life and beyond. There's some incredible innovative products there, and Kate has been featured on Dragon's Den, and Zippers In is an Amazon top seller across the world. So really looking forward to learning about Kate's entrepreneurial journey and really learn what makes her tick. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here. So just for our listeners, I met Kate at a talk that was hosted by Dominic McGregor. In fact, he was actually being interviewed at the Legacy Club, and there was a fantastic group of entrepreneurs, and we were learning about Dominic's journey with Social Chain, and then I got chatting to Kate, and I learned that she was the founder of Zippers In, female entrepreneur, and featured on Dragon's Den, and has been an Amazon top seller in 7 countries. And it's really on the entrepreneurial journey. So it'd be really great, Kate, to kick off to kind of learn about your upbringing, really go right back. Where did it all start? And then perhaps lead us through to your journey with Zippers In. I know that, you founded the company to solving some problems that you came across, but I'll save all the fun stuff, all the great stuff for you to talk about. But welcome.
Thank you. Gosh, that's a long way back to go then, isn't it?
Yes. And you thought this would be easy.
Yeah. All the way back to the beginning. So I left college with very mediocre A-levels and absolutely no clue what I wanted to do at all. I wasn't one of those people that had this life map and had a career choice. I didn't have a clue. So fell into a sales job because my sister's boyfriend at the time was working there, and it seemed like an easy in. And to start with, I was doing okay with sales. Just I love that personal interaction with people and getting to understand other people's businesses. And from the advertising sales job, I ended up working for the Daily Echo for the property newspaper for about 7 years until I got married and had my first daughter. And when she was about 6 months old, I became a single parent rather unexpectedly. So I had to kind of reassess what I was going to do. I didn't really have a lot of options for childcare. And at the time, the newspaper were advertising an editor to write the property pages. And I really wanted to do it. And I really wanted to do it from home. Obviously, no journalism degree whatsoever, no experience in editorial. But I always thought I was very good at creative writing, and I thought that I could have a really good crack at it. So I had a meeting with the editor of the paper, and he kind of laughed at me when I said that I wanted to apply, and explained my circumstances, that I needed something that was going to work around my daughter. I wasn't prepared to not work. And I said to him, okay, well, give me an opportunity. You've not got anybody filling the role at the moment. I'll work for free, and I can present my work to you. If you like what I do, the minute you publish a story, the job's mine. That's the deal. And he said, yeah, why not? Okay, see what you've got. And every evening, put the baby to bed, and I just shut myself away on my laptop and wrote what I could. And literally within a couple of days, they'd published some of my work and gave me a job. And I did that for a year. And I loved it. To me, that was like my perfect job. I could fit it around childcare. It just really worked. I love the creativity. I loved going and seeing the houses. I loved meeting people. And after doing it for about a year, they asked if I could be office-based full-time, which obviously completely and utterly changed the job role and just wasn't feasible for me at all.
Right. Interesting.
So they made me redundant. So I had this letter turn up in the post to say that I was being made redundant because the role was progressing and they needed something different.
What an experience, though.
I was devastated.
Yeah, I mean, from high to low.
Yeah,
so,
like the perfect job, and that was it. Just whipped out from underneath me. And my parents were traveling the world at the time, and I phoned them and explained. And my mum was very matter of fact. She said, "Oh, you stop your moaning. What are you going to do next?" So that was when I set up my first business. So I set up Fate Promotions marketing agency that day and started building my customer base. So that was sort of my first into entrepreneurship. It was a case of I didn't really have a choice. That was it. I wasn't going to be paid at the end of that week. So what was I going to do to fill the gap? And that was kind of the push I needed, and probably the best thing that could have happened.
You created your own luck from the beginning. I mean, to offer to work for free, I mean, that's taking a risk. And for our younger listeners out there, and obviously you did really amazing work and they hired you. So, because a lot of, it's like, how do you kind of get that first break, isn't it? And sometimes you have to think outside the box and just be really confident in your own abilities. Mm-hmm. Who do you think in your childhood was there someone somebody that gave you that confidence to try stuff like that, to take risks? Was there one person that kind of influenced you, that kind of
Probably
mindset?
two. Yeah, two people, both my parents. I was incredibly lucky that I had an amazing supportive family. My parents ran their own business. So I watched them build a print company, which my granddad actually started in his garage with a little print press he bought when he was 12. So he was printing cards and things for mates at school, and then progressed into an office. And eventually my parents were running a very large organization with a huge team of people. Watching them do that was incredibly inspiring. I have to be honest, at no point did I think, that's what I want to do. I want to run my own business. But I think probably subconsciously seeing how they built something and the pride that gave me to know that my parents did that was probably working away in the background. So my dad is definitely a huge part of my inspiration. And my mum is the perfect complement to that, in that she does have a very can-do attitude. So it really was, I phoned her and I'm pouring my heart out saying, it's the worst thing that ever happened. I've lost the best job ever. And, I've got this toddler and I'm never going to be able to earn any money. I don't know what to do with my life. And she literally just pulled me back up and said, well, it's happened now. There's nothing you can do about it. What are you going to do next? And that's why the company was called Fate, because she said to me, everything happens for a reason. This opportunity's been thrown at you, make the most of it, do something different. And she sort of gave me the kick up the bottom that I really needed to then move on to the next project.
That's brilliant. It actually shows how having the right people around you and obviously that inspiration gave you that boost you needed to get up and sort of find that next business and take that next step, really. And in terms of what was that experience like? So we've obviously got a lot of listeners out there that potentially are looking to maybe need that kick to stop what they're doing, or there may be an opportunity where they can start their own business, or they want to. What was that like from obviously leaving that one job to then starting Fate Promotions?
So for me, because it was a push rather than a jump, I didn't have a job anymore. I had to find something else. So I had to get on with it. I had to use all the skill set that I did. And initially, I just went back to the estate agents and the property developers that I've been working with and said, this is the relationship we used to have. That's different now. How can we still work together in a different capacity? So that ability to just adapt and find how I can utilize my skill set in a different way was really important. It is incredibly difficult to take a leap from something that is secure and reliable into doing something completely different. I mean, that takes huge amounts of courage. But that leap, that going into the fear, every time I have found it in me to do that. So that particular time was very much a push, and I pulled myself up and got back on with it. But the experience that gave me really opened my eyes to the fact that jump of fear is the area in which all the good stuff really happens. So you can stay comfortable and it's great, but along the journey, is that going to suit your personality? And some people love that consistency, and that's wonderful, and I hugely applaud that. But for some personalities, that's not enough. And for most entrepreneurs, they'll go, yeah, I get that. For me, that would never have been enough. I would always wanted to push myself further and see what else I can do. So taking those leaps, even if they just crash and burn, to me, having that experience is what life is all about. So whether it went right or wrong, sometimes it goes wrong, and that happens a lot. And I've made a huge amount of mistakes, but that's all part of the learning experience. That whole process has gotten me to where I am now, and I wouldn't change any of that, because that feeling when you're leaping is terrifying, and then when it actually all goes right and you do something, that's an incredible feeling to know that you've got this amazing pride of having created a business and had that courage to do that. So yeah, just kind of diving into it and not being afraid to fail. I think that's a really important factor, because it will happen. It has to happen. It's an inevitable part of growing a business, because if you don't have those failures, you don't have the opportunity to learn from those mistakes and make better ones next time.
Fantastic. And actually, I think what's remarkable about how you got started, not only did you have a young child, another in a mouse to feed, another human being in your life. You were a single parent too, so that survival instinct, and yet you were still able to have the courage to launch out on your own. Okay, you mentioned you had your support network and your parents and your family, but you were still very much you have your own little family, and that's really inspiring, I think, because I think a lot of folks out there, they feel that if they've got a child or they've got other commitments or whatever, they can't do that. But it's almost like but you just kind of just went for it, and I think that's hugely inspiring, because and that's actually you're being an amazing role model for your young daughter as well. So it's kind of but it's not easy.
I hear
like
a lot of women.
Hard.
Yeah, a lot of women say that they've got this idea or they want to start a business, but they're also thinking about having a family, so they're going to wait. And I think that's a bit of a shame, actually, because it doesn't mean that you have to do one or the other. And actually, each of the businesses that I've created have been successful because of that inspiration from being a mum, not despite the fact that I have a young child. So when I launched Zippers In, the idea came about purely because of that problem solving moment when I thought, right, I can't do my jacket up anymore. I need to develop a product that's going to work for me. And the product actually went to market when she was just a few months old. So I've got a newborn, second child, and I'm working on my next business, which actually, when you sit and think about it, sounds absolutely ludicrous. But it is that energy you have when you become a parent, and you've got, like you say, these other mouths to feed, but also that what you want to create for them, the future that you want to create for them. And that to me was always my biggest motivator, is that I wanted to be a role model, I wanted to be inspiring for my girls, but I also wanted to create something that they would be proud of, and maybe even that would give them a future business to work for.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, you highlight another observation, just listening to you talk about your journey. If you do put things off, then quite often that whether it's fear or whether it's just excitement of the idea, that those things are fleeting, and it's almost like a gift, because I'm always trying to figure out myself, like these times of effortless high performance when literally you can do anything. It doesn't matter what's thrown at you, you can just blow through it. But those times, they pass, and okay, you find it again. But it's like, I think for those folks out there, they're saying, well, I'll do this when I've started my family, or I'll do this when I buy the house, or I do this when but it's almost that's a risk, really. If you've got the courage to say just do it, it feels right, you've got that clear vision in your head, then that's the time. But there's going to be nothing, it's never going to be perfect. Let's face it. I mean, that's what, anyway.
Somebody said to me a little while ago, done is better than perfect. And I'm a little bit like that is a bit me, and sometimes I have to sort of slow down a little bit and come back to checking in on the details. But I have always had in my mind that it would be more painful to watch somebody else take my idea forward and be successful from it than it would be to dive in and mess it up. So if you take that risk and it doesn't go right, at least you've given it a really good shot. And actually there's a huge opportunity that it could go incredibly right, and it will be amazing, and you'll find the right support network to make that business really work. But if you don't do anything and you watch somebody else do it, that to me would just be such a kick in the gut. But that's where my real fear lies. And then I focus on that, and then the taking the jump and just doing it doesn't seem quite so scary after all.
No, I think that's brilliant. I think there's some incredibly valuable points in there. I think just at the time, just giving it a go, just starting it. And if, like you say, if it doesn't work, you've learned the lessons, but you've started it, you've just given it a go. And I think it sounds like throughout your journey, that's the sort of the mentality you have, which is just give it a go. And you mentioned about so I would like to lead on to your current business, Zippers In, and you mentioned about how it sort of that idea came about. So if you could just sort of take us from that point and just sort of over the sort of the beginning journeys with developing the product to sort of getting that to market, because I'm sure our listeners would love to hear a bit more about this.
Sure. So there's a picture that I've shared on social media quite a few times, and we stood on the beach in Weymouth with my jacket zipped up just at the top, and then my belly sticking out, and I had this really nice jacket that I'd spent quite a bit of money on, and it seemed really wasteful, not just financially but also environmentally, to then go out and buy a maternity coat when I already had a coat. Maternity coats at the time didn't have any of the technical qualities that the coat I already had. It was waterproof, it was wind resistant, live in the forest where we do a lot of walking, a lot of running. So I still wanted to do all those activities, and yet the equipment available just didn't seem to support the lifestyle I wanted through pregnancy. So for me at the time, it was a little bit, right, do pregnant women not actually go out in the rain? Do we not go running? Of course we do. So I wanted to carry on wearing the coat, and started hitting Google to see what I could find that would expand my jacket. And you can get the little expanders for your bra and your trousers. But your coat's probably the most expensive item that you buy. So it amazed me that there wasn't something around. So it was on the phone to my mum, right, I've drawn out some things. I've picked up some fabric. Can you help me put this thing together? Which she did amazingly well. And then I started using it. And it was actually more after my daughter was born that this same item had a dual purpose. So not only would it expand the jacket through pregnancy, but also when I had her in the carrier, I could use it then. And there was a particular time, which I've spoken about a few times, when I went into the post office, and initially I had my coat on zipped up, and then I had the carrier on the top. And anyone that's ever used one of these baby carriers, you need like a degree to put these things on. Then you put the baby in their sleep suit. And all these layers, because as a new parent, you're petrified they're going to be too cold. And then you go inside somewhere, and that baby's at risk of overheating within less than 2 seconds. So they're getting hotter, and then you're getting hotter. So you've got to take a child out of the sleep suit, take all these layers off. And then you've got to, and I'm handing my newborn baby over to a complete stranger. Can you just hold my child a minute while I take this carrier off and then take my coat off? Brilliant. And then when you're done inside wherever you've been, you've got to do the whole thing in reverse to leave again. And I remember thinking to myself, why did I not use that jacket expander thing that my mum made for me, so that I could then have her inside the jacket? So she didn't need lots of layers. I could have her closer to my skin. And it meant that if I went in somewhere, I could literally just undo it and take my coat off, and she was still in the carrier next to me. Made complete sense to me. And as I started using it, people would just stop me and say, oh, excuse me, where did you get that from? And it's that kind of moment where you think, actually, if I've created something that solves a problem for me, then it's going to solve a problem for a lot of other people, because we all live similar lifestyles. And so I thought, right, I've got something here. Obviously, having had the experience of building the first business and some knowledge around marketing and branding, my first step was protect my design. So we applied for the patent, got our protected design, started doing my trademarks, created a brand, launched a Facebook page, and just started selling them to order. So mums would contact me through the Facebook page. I had a lady with a roll of fabric and sewing machine in her garage, and she was making them to order. And initially we were doing only 5-10 a week. And then they sort of slowly grew. Parents love to share information on products that make life just that bit easier, because parenting is bloody hard work. So if there's that one thing that just makes it less painful, then that's it. We all want that thing. So they're all sharing it. I'm getting more and more inquiries. And having had the website live for about 6 months, I was contacted by Boots to go and pitch to their buying team, which just kind of knocked me off my chair, really, because to me this was what started as the term that I kind of hate, really, but the side hustle. This was just the side hustle in comparison to everything else that was going on at the time. So I went up to the Boots head office, sat in front of the team of buyers, and I'm chatting away and showing them my photo of me on the beach. And I had this idea, and this fabric is waterproof and wind resistant and breathable, and it needed to be safe to be next to my child's skin, and blah 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 blah. And then they said to me, oh, could you just wait outside for a minute, please? And I was expecting to sort of come back in them to say, well, that's all very nice, but when your little business gets a bit more serious, then come back and talk to us. And when they invited me back in again, they said, we think it's absolutely wonderful, such a clever idea. How quickly could you put it on our shelves? And kind of sat there going, okay. I mean, mass naivety. This was the September, and I'm saying, oh, we could have it on the shelves in December. This is my say yes to everything and work out the details later. In fact, it was the following December, so almost a year to scale operations. Wow. To the point that at this stage I had no idea really where the business could potentially go, or where it was going to go. I wasn't entirely sure what Boots were going to be looking at covering in terms of units. So this was right. I need to really go back to basics and look at putting together a business model that's far more scalable than my lovely lady with her sewing machine in the garage. So we then had to source manufacturing, and I had to look at the extending my IP into other countries if we were going to start looking at moving into other territories, looking at the insurances, looking at the things that need to, the legal elements that need to be on the packaging, all those things that you wouldn't necessarily think about. And I reached out to lots of other brand owners in the nursery space, and they were absolutely amazing, because people really will help other people. And I think that's like a really key point for anybody that's starting out, is don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask, because we've all been there, and we all then want to support the other people that are there then, because we've all been through those pain points. We've all made all of those mistakes, and actually if just passing along that little bit of advice can stop the next person going through that pain point and making those same mistakes, then that's an absolute win. But yes, so from there we launched into boots. We then launched on Amazon. We now sell into 38 different countries. And the business has scaled fairly dramatically. We've sold about 30,000 units so far of the jacket expander panel, and we're still looking to drive that forward. And then sort of came that moment of, well, what else is there? Because actually we need to really understand why our customers love this product, and what other concepts fit into this same bracket. So I guess the jacket expander panel was the initial concept for adaptive clothing. So trying to find ways of making the clothing that you own usable through pregnancy, because in my mind, maternity wear is the worst fast fashion. And I couldn't bring myself to invest in lots of maternity wear, not just because of that monetary thing, but as I say, just buying clothes to use for 6 months just seems to me incredibly wasteful when you've got everything you need. And so through lockdown, when I had just that little bit more time to interact with the customer base, I wasn't traveling so much, and I had time to really stop and think about where we were going to drive the brand next. And I also had a day where I started sorting through my wardrobe and realized that I had so many clothes that were just being stored because they didn't fit me anymore. And it really got my mind working into how we could develop a range of clothing that would be adaptable, so that whether your body shape was changing through weight loss, weight gain, hormone changes, menopause, or pregnancy, that the clothing that you owned adapted to fit, rather than having to go out and buy more clothes. And so started this research project just to see whether this was just me. I mean, I've been through goodness knows how many different sizes. And the statistic that I came across, which just blew my mind, was that women change dress size an average of 31 times throughout their life, which I think is nuts. Wow. And then when you start looking at why there's this high demand for fast fashion, to me, that seems like the obvious thing. We're not necessarily getting rid of clothing because the trends have moved on, or because it's low quality, but in fact, it's mainly because it doesn't fit us anymore. So we get rid of it. And there has to be a way of counteracting that. So that's where we are now. We're launching this new range of adaptive clothing, the Alternity range, which will hopefully work towards reducing that amount of fabric wastage, sustainable fabrics with designs that would adapt to fit, which would hopefully help to make our consumers make more conscious decisions about what they're actually investing in terms of fabric. That's incredible.
31 times. It's really, so I think I may have mentioned earlier, I have 3 teenage daughters, 14, 16 and 18. There's a lot of pressure on, there's a lot of pressure on men too, but I think there's more pressure on women to look a certain way or to be a certain way. Society puts all these expectations on, but as you said, body shapes, whether through childbirth or whatever, it's almost like every stage needs to be celebrated. And it's wonderful. Your business kind of, is looking for solutions, so, your customers can look their best and feel really good. And, and it's just, whatever stage you're in, it's all beautiful. It's just different. And it's not just these airbrushed, I'm just thinking of my daughters now. There's so much pressure on how they should look, and it's all fake, but actually to have something in the real world that actually does adapt to that, it's just kind of just made me think. That empowerment, that female empowerment around body confidence is a huge movement, and it's so important. And
I think women have tried to hide the fact for a really long time that we change. I mean, we change body shapes throughout the day, the way our hormone structure works. We've never really addressed it. We've never really discussed it before. But I can start a day in my size 10 jeans, and by the afternoon, I want to be in a size 14. That's just the way our bodies work. Right, because it's, you know, things change, things adapt. And we shouldn't have to spend time constantly having more clothes to adapt to or more clothes to fit those shapes and sizes. We should actually still be able to wear the things that we really love, really nice pieces that make us feel good, and that actually if we're changing shape, that they'll change with us.
So wow, that's 31 times again. Education. I had no idea. I'm not surprised. Right? I mean, it makes sense. I think this would be a good segue to introduce our sponsor, Flexi. I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to our amazing sponsor, Flexi. These days we have multiple subscriptions, from streaming services to gift boxes and much more. Discover Flexi's unique subscription marketplace, sourced from independent British brands, from organic beauty products, cocktail kits and responsibly sourced coffee to plant-based meals, gift boxes and much more. Whatever your passion, look forward to a regular box of joy delivered straight to your door. All easy to pause, cancel or resume in a tap or two from one single dashboard. So give Flexi a try. It's free to download from the App Store, or head over to www.flexiapp.uk. That's FLEXYAPP.uk. Now back to our guest. So it was National Women's Day yesterday. So it's great to celebrate female entrepreneurs like yourself.
Absolutely.
Are you able to talk a little bit about, we haven't really covered, you know, investment raises or anything like that. Is there anything, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience as a female entrepreneur, whether it's, you know, you've had a lot of experience, Dragon's Den and investors, and can we just touch on that at all?
The investment journey has been quite something. So we did our first investment raise. We closed about 2 years ago. So Dragon's Den came about just as I'd started to raise for the first time. We were looking to launch into the US and Canada. So wanted to really bring a bit of cash into the business to enable us to do that. And really then to look at where we were going to develop the company next. So Dragon's Den seemed like a clear winner for the avenue to explore first. The amount of times people have said to me, "Oh, that jacket expanded thing, that's amazing. You should go on Dragon's Den." So I thought, right, okay, well, no, it's about time. And it was a very interesting experience. It gave me an amazing opportunity to completely and utterly pull the business apart, really get to understand the numbers. You see these people go on Dragon's Den, everyone says, why would they not know the answer to that question? But when you're in the business and you're running it day in, day out, there is so much involved and you've got your notes everywhere. But to then strip a company down and work out where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, how the operations all look, you know, that due diligence process for Dragon's Den is so intense that it was incredibly beneficial for me. The experience of actually being in front of the cameras was a little bit like sticking a fork in my eye, but you know, I got through it. I didn't cry, so that was a winner. And it went the way it was meant to go, because I'd actually, just before going on the show, I'd already done a deal with a private investor that was going to close the day after we filmed. And I really wanted to work with people that I connected with. So to me, the money for the first round was probably the driving force, but that round really taught me so much about raising investment and what not only what the process should look like, but actually how it should feel for me. Throughout that, it was very much, I felt very lucky to have the opportunity to get in front of these people and to tell them about my business. And I was desperately trying to tell them how amazing this business was. We're now raising again. We are coming towards the close of our second investment raise to launch the new product range and to continue growing into other territories with Jacket Expander Panel. And in doing this raise, again, the whole research and getting to really make sure that my numbers were good and that I really understood what I was putting to potential investors. But I think my attitude's changed very much this time, in that I'm the driving force to find the right fit. And that it's not just about I'm lucky to get in front of an investor. It's actually about that two-way conversation, and I want to find the right fit for the business as much as the investor wants to see how great the whole package is. And now being able to bring that strategic value to the company, and make it an incredible experience. I mean, more than anything else, we do this because, I don't know if fun is the right word, but we do this because it's an incredible thing to do. It's not just about the money, it's about building something and all the experiences that go along with that. And I want that journey to feel really important to me. So the people I work with are really important, and connecting with amazing entrepreneurs to hear their stories has been a huge part of my journey so far. So this raise has been challenging when you're raising for the second time, post-pandemic, post-Brexit, in world uncertainty. It probably, couldn't be a more difficult time to raise money for any business. You then throw in being a female founder. The statistics are shocking, how much of the funding actually goes to female founders. And so it's hard going. And I think the fact that we have almost gotten to our target now is incredible. And I think that's really shows that we are a solid team with a solid offering. But I think the biggest challenge that I felt as a female founder is actually around the education of what it is that we're offering. One of the things that I've spoken about recently is this word niche, which I cannot stand to hear anymore. And
what about micro niche? No, just kidding.
So the majority of the people I'm pitching to, the investors that I'm pitching to, are men. And so when I start talking about maternity wear and the clothing market and changing body shapes, there is this little glaze over. And just trying to get across that an investor doesn't need to be passionate about the product necessarily. They need to see a really solid business model with huge opportunity for revenue generation and a solid team. And so making sure that when I go in front of somebody, that I'm not just saying, women we change body shapes. I've been all these different sizes, and this is why I think this is a good idea, but actually having the statistics to back that up, because I have heard so many times when I start talking about it, that's great. You're great. We love the story. We love the business. It's just too niche for us. I've heard that endless amounts of times recently. And when I then say 3.9 billion women worldwide are in this same position, and a huge proportion of those at some point during their lifetime will have a baby, and how many babies are being born every year. It's an ever renewing market. And so just having the confidence to say, this is not niche, let's talk it through, and this is why it's not niche. And so that education around something that's very female orientated, trying to get it really understood as a business proposition, has been really hard going.
Have you ever read, just from, there's a book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Have you read that?
I haven't, no.
So 0 to 1 billion, basically, and he actually celebrates the niche, and I think he actually said micro niche. That's why I said micro niche. But it might be it might actually excite you to actually get. I'm not saying to get excited about niche, but it might be a strength.
Sometimes it's great to be a niche. If you can fill that niche perfectly, then absolutely great. It's just trying to get around the fact that maternity wear is not a small market.
It's education to men. These pale, stale, and male. I think. Well, this time last year, I know 1p of every pound that was invested by VCs went to female entrepreneurs, female founders, which is awful. And I think 10p out of every pound goes to mixed gender startups. And actually, Flexi, my business, is a mixed. I have a female co-founder, and she's amazing, way smarter than me. But yeah, so it's like, why is that? It doesn't. I know it's more complicated than that, but it's wrong, really.
Yeah.
So, but I think the world is changing, and I think I'm seeing at my daughters. It's a great time to be a female entrepreneur, I think, because the world is changing, but there's a long way to go. And I think the more investors, support female entrepreneurs, and I don't know, the world's changing. It's crazy.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think everything, the way we do business is changing. There used to be a time when you picked a career, a set career, you had your job title. Life just isn't like that anymore. When somebody asks me what I do for a living, I find it really hard to come up with a title, because entrepreneur sounds very generic, but I do so many different things, within both businesses, and then consulting and supporting other startups. There's so many things in the pot that it is hard to come down to one title. And so just being able to get into that mindset that we are doing business differently, things are changing, and that we have to just assess things as we see them, not based on what we're used to or stereotypes. And the way women do business is very different a lot of the times to the way men do business. And I was told quite a few times when I started my race, I need to be more aggressive. If I'm going to, be in a man's world, I need to be more aggressive. And for a minute, I sort of thought that through. And then that's not me. That's not who I am. I am passionate and driven, but I'm not aggressive. I'm also soft and compassionate. And all of those things are the reason the business will be successful. And so therefore, I can't change who I am. I have to just present why that structure, why that package is good for the brand. And so just trying to get that changing mentality that we don't necessarily need to be seen as equal because we're all different, and that's across gender, culture, everything. We are all different, but we all bring something amazing to the table. And the more diverse amount you can have within your team, we try and have the creative thinkers, the strategic thinkers, the men, the women, the everything, because if you have that whole collection of viewpoints, you're going to find the right way forward. Whereas if you just look at, well, we're just women, that's no different. That's just as bad as being all men, because then you don't get that collective input.
Yeah, I think that's some brilliant points there. And actually, I just wanted to touch on talking about, so obviously approaching investors, just coming to the second round now. What did you initially look for in investors? What are you looking for? So what do you look for in investors, and what have you learned is important to have from your investors? Because I guess a lot of people just go for the money, whereas obviously we know how important it is to have contacts, value, passion around the product. So what sort of key things you should look for when you're trying to get investors involved?
And also to help frame things, Kate, so Carrie, if you don't mind me saying, has just been approved for his SCIS recently. So Harry is literally putting together his investment deck and is looking for his first angels.
Very exciting.
On the SCIS for cocktail connoisseurs. So
amazing.
That might help frame things a bit.
Absolutely,
right.
So there's a lot of people like Harry listening as well.
Absolutely. So there's here asking for me and all the listeners out there.
Right, I'll write down all the instructions. So when I first started, even at the beginning of this raise, there was still too much focus on the money, and I was still listening to a lot of noise. So people would say, don't ever do cold approach. You need to find the right introducers. So I spent a lot of money in the early stages, going through workshops, having support, having introducers, paying retainer fees. Please don't do that, any of it. If you have a really good deck, and I think that is probably the most important part, really know what you're offering and make sure that it's really clearly articulated, and that it can be delivered in just a few minutes to make your point. You don't need to tell them everything, you just need to get somebody excited. And it's fine to do cold approach. There are some amazing introducers out there, and they will give you the right connections, but the introduction should come from you. You know your business better than anybody else, and you should have the confidence to pick up the phone to somebody that you want within your business. So do your research and work out who you want. So for me, I wanted to look at who I thought would be a good fit. And if I'm honest, probably first and foremost for me, not necessarily just for the business. I need to work with people that inspire me. I like to have people around me that lift me up. And I think that's really, really important, because being an entrepreneur is incredibly hard work. And it's very easy to get lost in it all. So having people that will give you that support, and that actually when it's really rubbish, sometimes we'll just go, it's okay. We'll learn from what we've done. We'll pick ourselves back up again, and we'll start fresh tomorrow. So that team element, the right support network, how you're going to find people that just get your vibe, and then how the business is going to benefit from that, having people that get your brand and that get your vision. And then can bring something more than just money. And that may be a little bit of experience. It may be connections. There may be a whole heap of things, but you'll know what you need. What does your business need? What is it lacking? Because, we think we can do it all, but we all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And I've been very open and honest about where my strengths lie and where my weaknesses lie. And that's such an important thing for a founder to be able to do, is to be able to be self-aware enough to go, this is where I fall down. This is the bit I can't be incredible for the business. And in fact, whether that's finding the right investor or the right team, but that's the bit that needs more work. So I really did go on a mission after I've made lots of mistakes and spent too much money and realized I was going down completely the wrong path. I went about it a completely different way and thought, right, I need to work out who I want in the business, and then I need to tackle them. And I need to go to speaking events and turn up and get myself in front of them, because that's right. What I need to do. I need to know that they're the right fit, and I need to know that I'm keen to make that happen. So yeah, that confidence. Once you've got everything in place, once you've got your tools, once you've got your deck and your forecast and all that information, find your targets and go for it.
Right.
It's preparedness as well, isn't it? I think you highlight an interesting point too. Psychology, being the buyer, and even just thinking about my daughters, it's like having people like them, doing everything they can for them, people to like them. But it's like, what do you like about them? You be the buyer in the situation, and try and come from a place of authenticity. But the same with the business, isn't it? It's like, if it's easier said than done, but if you do your homework and you know who you want in the business, then the dynamic of the conversation changes. And I think actually at your stage, Harry, and I'm just speaking from my experience, it's a very critical, the first seed investment you get is so critical, because these folks are going to maybe be a bit more closer to the business. Not all, but a lot of angels will, they're passionate or interested. And as the product market fit improves, then it's all about, you just need fuel to scale the business. But again, it's different for every business.
Yeah. So here's an interesting fact that I heard this week. The average investor founder relationship lasts longer than the average marriage. So
wow.
Scary, but when you're looking for your investors, keep that in mind, because you're going to be with these people for a really long time to come. That's the relationship is really key, because you are committed to each other for a fairly hefty period of time, and you're going to go through an awful lot together. So that's really important. Even if it is that they don't really want a lot of involvement in the business, you are still going to be connected for a really long time. And the more you can do that research and work out, it just stops all the time wasting. So it's easy to think that because the investors, VCs and angels, get so many opportunities presented to them all the time, that we feel like we have to fight in that space. But actually, if you're putting your offering out to hundreds and hundreds of people all the time, you are just wasting a lot of energy. And if you research the VCs that you want to target based on their statistics, look on their website and really take the time to go through what their criteria is. Because if you're putting your offering with cocktails out to somebody that only invests in tech, it's a complete and utter waste of everybody's time. Of course. So if you've done your research and you find a short list, I mean, even if it's only about 40, you are far better off doing that and then working hard to make sure you get in front of those people, knowing that they are a good fit and that it's a two-way conversation, and making sure that you've got the questions you want to ask them as well, because it does go both ways.
Really good advice.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think I've been writing down all the notes about that, and I'm definitely going to take. And I
could hear your mind turning, Harry.
I've got my pad, so I've got
we can definitely carry on that conversation.
Yes, that would be amazing. Yeah, I think that the points there about shortlisting, I think in preparation, because obviously I know that the pitch deck is that sort of that key presentation that really just shares everything. Obviously the business plan is the one thing that's the more kind of in depth, but that pitch deck is so valuable. And I think sort of then that approach to finding them, doing the research behind what they do, like I said, if it's a tech business, it's not right for cocktails, obviously. But no, I think there's some really valuable points there. And for those listeners out there that are maybe looking at doing funding, I think they've got some really good points that they can pull from there as well.
And actually, for those that don't know what SEIS means, we mentioned that Harry's business, Cocktail Connoisseurs, was approved for SEIS. It's Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, and it basically gives the first 100, there's 150,000 limit, and the first 150,000, there's just some really good tax benefits for those early investors. And I don't think there's any capital gains either on that money as well.
So it's capital gains, and then 50% income tax relief. So obviously it's quite an incentive for anybody out there that is looking to do that for first round. And then it's EIS after, which is up to $1 million, I believe.
4 million, I think.
Or 4 million. So it's it's a bit less benefits, but it's obviously a real benefit as well if you can secure that. Brilliant. Oh no, that's great. I'll be definitely continuing that conversation after. But actually another area I just wanted to touch on is you said you went from, well, you've then got onto Amazon following Boots. What's that? Because obviously currently the world, everybody loves Amazon. Everybody uses Amazon. It's the go-to place for e-commerce right now. I think it was some silly statistics like 50% of all sales in the US are just from Amazon, or e-commerce sales are from Amazon. So it's definitely going up. So how's that experience been for you? And yeah, what's it like?
So Amazon is a funny one because it kind of is that midpoint where it sits between direct to consumer and it's sort of B2B in a way too, because you don't really get as much opportunity as you want to interact directly with the consumer. So obviously you're always going to want to drive sales direct to brand. But Amazon does open up a massive opportunity. It is a great way to reach mass market. It's probably the easiest way to start an export journey because they do make it relatively simple to sell products into a massive amount of other countries. So I would say at the moment, about 81%, I think last year, of our revenue was generated from sales direct to consumer, and that included Amazon. And trying to launch into the US market without Amazon would have been incredibly difficult. So being able to launch into Amazon US was so much easier, and it got us some brand awareness for us then to build on that and to bring a customer base directly back to our website. So yeah, retail has changed huge amounts. And I think probably that initial conversation with Boots, I came back and opened a bottle of champagne. To me, that was like, right, I've made it. That's it. That's what success looks like. You know, I've got my product into stores. And the day I went in and took a selfie, the selfie with me with my product on the shelf.
I've heard that before. I like it. Yeah, that's good. Selfie.
I'll trademark that one. When I did my selfie, that was like the best feeling. But actually, in reality, the retail stores now are such a small part of what the business does. And we now sell with the range, Go Outdoors, Extreme GB, lots of independents, Robert Dyers, but it still remains to be a very small part of our revenue generation because there are so many benefits of being able to deal direct to consumer. Not only are the profit margins obviously so much better, but that ability to then bring the customer back to purchase from you again, that brand loyalty, and being able to speak directly to the customer for feedback. All of those things now are so important to building a brand, and you just can't get those necessarily with the high street stores. So although it's great for brand confidence, being able to say you're in a high street store, direct to consumer is certainly the way forward for us. And Amazon is great for that. It's a very open and honest marketplace. So you have to have a good product with a good customer service because otherwise it'll be very clear in the reviews. So that's a really good way of keeping that brand trust there. So I think we've got about 1,000 reviews on Amazon at the moment, which just continues to drive the product on and on. But it is it's quite a difficult platform to navigate from a seller perspective. But if you can get it right, it certainly is rocket fuel for a brand.
Amazing, great. Well, another load of notes I've got written down as well. So that's perfect. No, great. I've actually just noticed the time. I'm nearly the end of our hour already, but I just wanted to wrap up for a few sort of
doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it has a few final questions really that we just like to finish off. So the first one will be if you could have a coffee with anybody alive. So we normally have we go for a live on this occasion because normally people ask that. So someone that's alive, who would that be and why?
Oh my gosh, there's like a whole list. Can I have a whole coffee morning? Well, I'm hopefully having a coffee with Dominic McGregor very soon, which I'm incredibly excited about. So that would definitely have been on my list. I tick that box, and then probably next to that probably would be Karen Brady. I think she's a great role model for females, and I have quite a few friends who like to call me Karen on a regular basis. The next Karen Brady. So I need to just have a chat with her and find out what I need to do to make sure that is the case.
Great. Amazing. Well, we'll see if we can organise some. Well, the one with Karen, I think it sounds like you've got the one with Dominic set up, but we'll see what we can do with Karen. And I guess one final question from me is if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, whether it be from your early journey, from a recent, what would that be?
Get excited about failing.
Right.
Be okay with it. Be comfortable with it. It's the best way to learn and progress. It's fine to make mistakes, make as many as you can, but just make sure you pick yourself back up again, and be open and honest with yourself about why those mistakes happened, and then go into the next one and be quite happy with failing again.
Anything else from you, James, or are we all good?
I think can you recommend any books for our listeners? Any books that have made a big impact in the last 5 years?
Yes, there's quite a few. Actually, Shoe Dog, The Story of Nike. I loved that. That was amazing. The Subtle Art. I won't say the next bit. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a. Absolutely brilliant book. I loved the concept of just doing you and not taking or not absorbing so much of the negative energy from other people or the judgment. I loved that one too.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Great.
So Kate, one final question. How can people find you? So whether they want to follow your journey or your business?
LinkedIn. I'm always really happy to connect with other entrepreneurs. So Kate Bell at LinkedIn, katebell.me across social media, via the Zippers In website. By all means, get in contact with us there. And I also have my own website, katebell.me, for my own story.
Amazing. Great stuff. Well, Kate, thank you so much for joining us on Rockerpod today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's been really fun, really. And the time flew.
That was great.
Yes, thank you for listening to today's episode as we spoke with Kate Bell about her entrepreneurial journey. When you get a moment, if you loved this interview, please, we'd love it if you could jump over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave a quick review. We love all your messages. It helps us get exposure to inspire and share more stories with you, our listeners, and also helps us guide the types of guests that you might be looking for in future. And we're always open to suggestions, or if you're an entrepreneur or visionary out there and would like to be interviewed by us, please do get in touch. A couple of key takeaways from our interview with Kate today. One is that if you are an entrepreneur and are seeking investment, those first seed angels are really key. A lot of these relationships last longer than the average marriage, so just choose very wisely with that filter on. Another one is, don't delay, just do it. A lot of folks put things off. If you've got that fire burning inside of you, just have the courage to jump in and get started. And also, as Kate said at the end, get used to failing, because action is better than inaction, because that will spur you on, and you can learn through your mistakes. And just lastly, thanks again to our awesome sponsor Flexi, the single destination for unique subscriptions in the UK. Do apologise if you're listening outside the UK, but Flexi does have a marketplace of beers, wines, soaps, flowers, pies, you name it. And you can switch the products on and off to fit around your lifestyle. Have an amazing week ahead, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.